All right, everybody, welcome to the show.
Welcome back.
This is a really fun day. I've been looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I like these.
I do too. We are having listener voicemail day. So, for those of you who listen all the time and every week, which is so many of you, thank you for an incredible subscribers. You guys are the best. You always hear me do this thing like, hey, you can leave a message for us over at Hatmaker.com on the podcast page. And a bunch of them have done it.
Yes.
And what that means is that every so often we have listener voicemail day where we have listened to your awesome messages. We've selected some of them and we are going to play them today and we're going to respond to them because they include, awesome stuff, to be honest.
Y'all did not disappoint.
They did not disappoint. As if we ever thought that you would. You are smart, you are tender, you are funny. We've teared up in several cases. Hit reply or repeat. Mm-hmm. You're nailing this. And so, first of all, thanks for doing that. Thank you for voicemailing us. Like we sincerely love to hear from you, and we don't have a podcast if you're not listening to it. So
exactly.
Yeah, this is a fun thing to center like the whole reason we do a podcast.
Yeah, it turns out our listeners, excellent content.
Oh my God, I know. It's so true. I remember one time, different genre, but same community, where one of my publishers, they meant this nicely, but I had something, I'd posted something funny on socials, some funny thing. And then I opened it up for everybody else to tell their version of that funny thing. Uh-huh. My publisher was like, your online community is funnier than even you. I'm like, I know what you mean. Like, they are funnier than I am for a fact. Mm-hmm. And you're wise and smart and interesting. And you just bring a lot of like color and interest to this space. And so we're really excited to play some of your messages and respond back. I would like to note that for those of you who who watch these episodes on YouTube, over on the YouTube channel, I guess it was maybe like 2 or 3 months ago that Sydney, my oldest daughter, said, you guys have to wear shoes. Nobody wants to see your feet. I think the way she said it was like, nobody wants to see your old feet.
Old lady.
Oh my God, that's what it was. Nobody wants to see your old lady feet. So first of all, that's rude.
And I remember because I thought about it for 17 days. This was in the dead of winter when she said this, but I was like, well, I guess I can't podcast anymore when it comes summertime.
That's right. I guess
what
I'll
am I
have to
supposed
quit.
to wear shoes?
I know. Insane. And I do want it noted that we have actually obeyed her every day since, because nobody can rip you open like a 24-year-old girl. Okay. Right. And so we were like, shit, nobody wants to see our old lady feet.
And even though it was the dead of winter, still we have, 72-degree days. Correct. But I have not put my flip-flops on work days.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is neither have I. We have worn closed-toed shoes since that day, except for today. I have bare feet on, but I tucked them up underneath me in a crisscross arrangement. So my point is, if you are watching on YouTube, I'm sorry. It's 90 degrees today.
I know.
I also feel like we're adults. This is our job and our show. Can we very quickly create our own summer footwear policy?
I mean, yes, but I've gone through all of the possible options.
Like what?
Like any kind of flip-flop, sandal, slide. They all reveal our old lady feet. Mm-hmm. So is that still not allowed? I need to clarify, but also I don't want to know. I'll just keep wearing tennis shoes. It's fine.
I don't feel like we can do it. I mean, you and I are saying this right now in May. Let's talk about this in August.
I know.
Are we going to put our feet into tennis shoes? We will not. We won't.
Probably I'll keep a pair in the car.
I see what you're saying.
and then just put them on to walk across the yard. It is a meat locker inside this space.
That is fair.
So I won't
That is true.
burn to death.
Maybe
from
we just
shoes
keep,
in here.
oh my God, Amy, maybe we are like Mr. Rogers and we keep our studio shoes right by the door. And as soon as we walk in, we change into our studio shoes. You remember how he used to do this?
I do. And, I love Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
I'm all on board. I'm not the type of person that just buys an extra pair of shoes.
You're right.
But maybe I could expense it.
You're right. God. Okay. Well, I'm just going to keep.
I just got another pair of shoes.
Okay. You're right. Let's just keep thinking about it because this is a free country.
I know.
You know?
But she said what she said, and
did say what she said.
it's in my brain now, and I can't just erase it.
No,
I wonder. I mean, not that we could not wear slippers in the summer, but like, are slippers appropriate because they cover your whole foot, right? I don't know. Okay, we'll talk to Sid about it.
Okay. Well, I just want to reopen the conversation.
That was for 5 minutes about our feet.
Sorry. God, why is anybody still here? Okay. Let's get into our listener voicemails. All right. We're going to start first by going back to our April 2nd episode. And this was our conversation with Shannon Watts. Very vibrant conversation. If you missed that one, highly recommend you go back and listen to it. So one of the questions that really stuck a chord from that conversation was about imagining your life without barriers. So let's hear from Anne.
Hi, Jen. My name is Anne. I am listening to your April 2nd podcast. And fun fact, I have actually never listened to your podcast, but I follow you on Instagram and have for a long time. Thought just what a cool, rad chick you are. So I saw that who you were interviewing today, Shannon Watt, and decided, I'm going to listen to that because I like her too. And funny enough, you asked this question of if there were no, nothing blocking you, what would be something that you would want to do in life? And it's also ironic because I have very suddenly sort of been thinking about something like that. It's a very specific thing. And I just said to my husband the other day, I have this random thing that I kind of want to do sometime in my life. It is beyond anything I've ever done. It's not in any realm of the line of work that I do or anything like that. But I would really like to do some sort of like voiceover, like whether that's being a voice for a character in a movie or a show, or whether that is, narrating a commercial or I don't know, something like that. I just think it sounds cool and it's so random, but it keeps popping into my mind. Like you guys were talking about how that happens. You get the little ping. So I thought, what the heck? I'm gonna do this voicemail thing and I'm gonna send it to you. So thanks for asking for these ideas. It's kind of fun to put it out into the universe. And it's fun to be able to just like pick up my phone and talk into it and it goes to you. That's weird, but also cool. All right. I'm rambling. You're amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Ooh, I love that because it is so specific.
And that she's saying it out loud.
Uh-huh.
There's so much power in, I mean, we talk a lot about journaling and writing things down, but then saying it out loud to someone else.
Totally.
There's
and not just to somebody else, me and you.
everybody.
Quite a few people listen to this show. She just made an announcement.
And I love that she's not saying it like, oh, I have this crazy dream and it'll never happen.
Yeah.
She's saying, I'd like to do this.
Yeah.
And then she's going to be open-handed about it. Like, I think it goes back to, if it's for you, it'll come to you.
I like that.
That doesn't mean we always say yes to the things. Like, things pass us by because we say no.
Yeah.
Or we listen to other people say no.
That's
But
true.
I think if it's for you, it'll come back around.
Yeah.
And we just have to be open-handed, open-minded,
Yeah.
and listen to those pings and say yes.
I completely agree. When I can look back, I'm pretty sure I'm doing my memory work on what you and I said about that. And I have a feeling you said the Camino, and I think I said something about songwriting.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
If I was wrong about that, we said that somewhere. I think it was on this episode. But one thing that I like about this, and kind of about what you just said, Amy, is that if we pay attention, because we can absolutely gloss over any little messages that the universe keeps sending us, any little patterns that we notice. But if we're paying attention, you may notice, like, I keep having a really strong response to this. Every time I hear this, I think this. Every time I watch this, I get emotional. Every time I think about this, my brain kind of crackles a little bit. Those messages matter. I mean, this would be the way in which every time you hear somebody doing the Camino, something inside of you zings.
Yeah.
Like you're connected to it. I feel like those should not be ignored. Mine is so absurd.
No.
Okay, you're right.
You're going to take the posture.
You're right. It's not absurd. Absurd's the wrong word. Mine is so out of my realm. But I could not deny that I kept having a really strong reaction to songwriting. I still do.
I don't think it's outside your realm. And I think it's a both and situation with whether it's this like spiritual, the universe, or if it's just our minds paying attention to patterns. Like if you decide you want a red car, then you see 10 red cars a day.
Totally.
Not because there's more of them.
Yes.
But what you focus on, you then notice.
That's true.
So I think it's like I will always default to the spiritual explanation of things.
But it's probably a combo.
But also there's just the science of our brains
Totally.
will recognize the patterns and focus on it and then be super creative in how we can figure something out.
Oh my gosh. Our bodies know what we like, what we are drawn to, and even what we're good at. You know, like that instinct where some people go, I know this sounds crazy, but what if and then everybody around them who knows them best goes, that's not crazy. You're good at that. Like you would be good at that, or you're gifted for that, or you have a predisposition for that. I think our bodies know the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. By the way, voiceovers are a whole deal. Pepper, our producer, has made a hardcore living, including voiceover work in his like acting canon. And there are so many slivers to it. And it's interesting and it's fun and creative and different all the time. And so, I'll tell you something, Anne, we are cheering for you. Put it out there, girl. Like put it out there and see what happens. I love that. All right. This next one gets a little bit tender. Ashley left Amy and I a message after hearing our pretty major conversation with Maddie Corman, from an actress that you certainly know, on betrayal trauma. Ooh, it was a doozy. And here is what Ashley had to say.
My name is Ashley, and I had never heard of the betrayal trauma before today. And coming up now 9 years ago was the first time my world shattered. I had babies, 2 boys, my youngest turning 1 year old when I found out my husband cheated on me. And I didn't know how I would ever live again. I didn't know how I would survive. I've been to the counseling and I have had a support system and I read the books, but I so appreciated hearing I wasn't alone. I had stayed originally, forgave my husband, set clear boundaries, and it was a bit over 3 years ago that I found out that he was cheating again. And I knew exactly what I had to do. And I was empowered to leave and get a divorce. And I have had to rebuild my life starting at 40, create a whole new life for myself and my boys, and get a full-time job and work through the grief of all the losses that I have had. And sometimes, even though I have this great, big, amazing job and life, and I'm doing all the things, I feel frustrated that it's not easier. I am healing and I am moving forward, and it takes time. It's okay that it's still sad and it's still hard, and I'm still living, and it's this grief, and it's the joy and the pride of being able to rebuild and be stronger, and all the gifts. I felt that so much of wanting all those gifts of who I've become, but without all the hard parts of getting here. So that's all I have to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I think this is one of my favorite things about doing a podcast is that we can have a conversation with a guest that is so specifically located in their story. The details can be very singular, like to their experience. And even if we hear that story and go, whoa, that is outrageous, somebody else hears it and goes, you know what I took away from that? The term betrayal trauma, and that put language around my own thing that I am working through. Just, this is why it matters. This is why it matters to kind of tell the hardest parts of our story, I think. Because it matters not just to us when we sort of find the clarity in the voicing of it. We were just talking about what it means when we write something down or we say it out loud. It cuts through the fog. Both of those practices in a lot of way, but also for the hearers, the listeners who go, I can relate to that.
And not only our individual stories, but the tools to then process them and heal from them. And sometimes the tool is just language. Like, Brene, Saint Brene talks about how important the language is. It's the bowl that you mix everything up inside of. Yeah. And if you don't have the word for something, you'll revert back to another word that doesn't really describe it, that sort of leads you on the wrong track, that doesn't
So true.
That doesn't point you towards healing because it doesn't really define it well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Language is its own tool. Going back to Brene, I read something from her once. Was it in? I can't know. I've read all her books. Feel like, I don't know which one it was. But you'll know it because it became part of the zeitgeist. She's the one who put into my hands the phrase, the story I'm telling myself is, to use inside conflict. And everything about that phrase shifted the energy inside a disagreement. It put sort of this compassionate self-responsibility right in the middle. Like, no matter what somebody else on the other side of you has said or done, to be able to say, here's how I'm perceiving this. It takes out of the, you did this, or you did that, or you are, or you never, or you don't, whatever those inflammatory starters are, and puts it back into, this is how I am perceiving this, and this is what I'm telling about. Game changer. I've probably said that phrase 100 times since then. Language.
Yeah.
Language is a tool, and this podcast is made up of words.
So I'm, as Ashley worked through all of this, came to terms with what she was dealt, like, obviously we all understand grief and anger and sadness and everything that comes with starting over, but just being able to acknowledge that a betrayal is a form of trauma.
Yeah.
Like helps you understand your own responses better, helps you be more tender with yourself, and gives you another path forward, because dealing with PTSD, complex PTSD after a trauma is a specific type of healing.
You're right. And I appreciated her observation that we can, in fact, rotate in every good tool, the language, the therapy, the embodiment work, the community, all of it, medication if that's appropriate. We can literally onboard every good tool, and it still hurts. It's not they're not magic tools. They don't make hard things end abruptly. They just help us see it through.
Yeah.
They help us get to the other side of it. But there is still this moment. I really resonated with that, where you have every tool in your toolkit activated on the table, and you are using them consistently, and you still feel so sad and so betrayed and so lost sometimes. And that is just the truth of suffering, that there is a moment when everything is coexisting.
Yeah. There are days where you think, how will I make it through this day?
Yes.
Like this sadness or grief or whatever it is, it weighs 10,000 tons.
That's right.
And yet we wake up the next morning and we realize we have already survived our worst day we've ever had, all of us. And then you just employ the tools again to get through another day until one day it's not as heavy.
That's right. For a while, they're just on equal footing, the pain and the tools. And they can just exist in equal measure on any given day. But that's a season. And if we can develop the tolerance to bear it long enough, those tools start outpacing the pain. I really appreciated that comment. All right, let's move on to the next one, because so many of you sent messages about this particular episode, and it is with the beloved Father Richard Rohr. That was that episode had the most traction out of, I think, any other episode in the quarter, to be honest with you. And we understand why, because
so many people reached out to me and said they listened to it.
Yep, same.
And that it was so important to them.
Yep, same. And when we just sort of looked at the podcast analytics, like we're always paying attention to what does the community respond to? What do you love? What are we bringing? Are we bringing you what you would like to hear? That one just had a huge spike. So Alice called us all the way from Berlin, over there in Germany, and reminded us that sometimes not responding with rage is a radical move all on its own. Here's what she had to say.
Hi, Jen and Amy. This is Alice calling from Berlin, Germany. I just finished listening to your wonderful interview with Father Rohr and your requests for our comments as a listening community. And I wanted to share how deeply moved I was by his mention of the USAID funding cuts. I work in global health, and I'm seeing the implications directly and through my colleagues in the field of what it means to cut assistance to programs for vaccination, HIV treatment, tuberculosis treatment, malnourishment treatment for starving children. I mean, you name it. It's absolutely crushing and unthinkable. And I've always thought of assistance to the poor as really a core tenet of the Christian faith. And it's very hard not to succumb to bitterness, resignation, or even hatefulness in response to these decisions by people who have so much wealth and so much privilege. And so I was really grateful for his mention of lack of hatefulness as its own form of power and its own form of response. And that while it might feel like a soft power, it's really not. And that is something that we can bring to the table in these really trying and challenging times. And so I'm sitting with that, and I'm really grateful for your podcast, which is bringing me so much hope in these days that do bring kind of new challenges on a daily basis. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for what you do.
Alice.
Thank you, Alice. She put it into words.
Yeah.
It's so much better than I could have.
Yeah, she did. Distilled that down into this like really core truth that simply not responding with hate is powerful.
Yeah.
It's so weird right now. It's a weird time to be in leadership, to have any sort of platform at all, which we have, to be an American, and know what to do right now and how to respond. I understand, like, what she's saying to me, I'm assimilating so much because I'm an emotional person and I respond with emotion, and because these are emotional things. So let's be honest, I'm not overreacting to these policies that are literally going to leave people starving.
Already.
People will starve. They will not have their medicine. People will die. So it's not overreacting to feel really emotional about these policy changes. But I feel sometimes my instinct, I do sometimes want to reach for rage. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to burn shit down over this. I want to kick walls over. I want to scream and pull my hair out. I want to shake people senseless. And I'm not sure that that's the most powerful response.
No, probably not.
But it feels good.
When I'm thinking about and talking about people who have no clue, it almost makes me more angry, the people who are oblivious versus the people who support it. Like it's almost easier to name evil and acknowledge it and say, like, this is how the world's always been.
Yeah.
Like, in our time, these are the people doing it, versus the people who just like say, surely that can't be true.
Yeah.
I do tend to get like ragey, hair on fire, but then don't have the words to even talk about it in an intelligent way.
Right.
Or when I'm with people who fully understand, we tend to just stand there and look at each other and shake our heads and then just silently cry. Like, I don't have the words for the lament either. Yeah. And so I end up not saying much at all that feels useful. But I loved his posture towards it. It just, I don't think I'm going to have words, useful conversations, solutions if I don't recenter myself every day.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And even back to her, like, very specific point, a response born out of love and compassion for our neighbors is powerful. It's not soft. It doesn't lack like depth. It's not just like the low hanging fruit way to respond. Particularly in the face of such cruelty, to be able to respond and say, I am actually heartbroken. I am grieving for the families and the children in Gaza. I am brokenhearted for them, and I want them to live, and I want them to live in freedom, is a powerful thing to say.
Yes.
It's an antithesis, I think, to so many of the messages that if we're not careful, if we don't counterbalance messages of cruelty and disenfranchisement and dehumanization, if we just let those go because we feel like our soft answer isn't a strong enough response, if we do not respond in love, those will become the norm. Those slowly take over the cultural conversation. They start poisoning perspectives. And before you know it, 1 year from now, people will say, well, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You hear it enough times without any sort of rebuke to it or a different response. And you go, oh, well, I guess that is just a reasonable way that we should be living in this global community. So I liked her exact point, which is that love is powerful. And not responding rage with rage has its place in cultural shifts and injustice work. So thank you, Alice, so
Thank
much.
you, Alice.
Thanks for calling in from Berlin. Isn't
Yeah.
that fun to think of her over there in Berlin with our little dumb voices and her little AirPods like in her ears? Love that.
Okay, this next one is a curveball, but we loved it. Becky has a question for Jen about something a little more personal. Let's hear it.
Okay, yikes. I have this feeling when I am at a speaking event and we have a Q&A. And somebody is about to ask me something in a live setting without any filter, and I don't know what it's going to be. I have that feeling. But
Well, I've listened to it.
okay.
It's a great question.
Okay. Well, let's hear it. Here it is.
Hi, Jen and Amy. My name's Becky. I am a pastor's daughter, and one thing that I've always wanted to know, Jen, I know that you're really close with your family and your dad's a pastor, and I want to know more about when you kind of widened your faith. How did that go with your dad? Does he have the same beliefs you do? I'm just so curious because I have widened my beliefs, and it's really tricky with my parents. They have not come along for the ride with me, but you seem to have just a really close relationship with your family. And I would love an episode on how that went down. Were there really difficult conversations? Was he supportive? And your mom seems great too. I don't know. Sorry. Just that came to mind as I was listening to the podcast today for some strange reason. I listened to them all. Thanks for everything, you guys. Jen, I was the one on the first cruise that was seasick the whole time and missed, everything, but I still had a great time. So hope you're doing well. Thanks. Bye.
Darn it, Becky. We hated that for you so much. You have to know. We were just sick to death for your sickness. What a great question.
It's a good question. I think a lot of people probably wonder this.
That's true. And to some degree, we can both sort of speak into it to a degree.
Yeah.
First of all, let me say something about my parents that has just always been true, even back when we were still like absolutely in the belly of the Southern Baptist beast, which is how we grew up. That's how my dad grew up. That was my childhood and young adulthood. And even then, going all the way back, my parents spiritually have never been overbearing, ever.
No.
Even when the church was overbearing, the youth pastor was overbearing, the curriculum was overbearing, the system at large was overbearing, the denomination was overbearing. My parents weren't. Both of them, and Amy is super close to my parents, and she went so far as to say earlier before we started recording that if we were ever to do a episode on mentors, we would need to have my mom on because that's her mentor, not mine, hers, that she would be willing to share with you. So she knows my parents really, really well. And they're just not preachy. They're not. This is not a joke. And this is not me sort of glossing over my own personal experience. I cannot remember one time. Okay, let me just think for 1 second. I don't want to be a liar. Hold on. Okay, well, as of right this second, I cannot remember one single time my parents ever told any of us, you should be doing this because God, or because church, or because you're a pastor's kid. Or not once.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed.
Yeah.
Because there are still differences
For
in
sure. Yep.
some doctrine,
Yep.
and yet never once have they said you're wrong.
That's true.
Even if, and you know me, I am in left field
Yes.
compared
Right.
to Larry King.
Yeah, that's right.
But they accept that.
They do.
I think they've always believed that, I mean, certainly God is big enough, and faith is big enough
Yeah.
to accommodate whatever journey you're on, whatever you're like chewing on or trying to figure out. It's fine.
It is true. And I want to be clear. That does not mean we have not had some hard conversations like around some of this, particularly when we were leading our church, who my parents were a part of, through big seismic shifts, specifically around the LGBTQ community, and becoming a church that was fully affirming. That was not without its struggle. But never was it like, my dad never said, you're wrong,
Right.
or this is bad leadership, or any of those things you might expect. And my dad has come so far, by the way, on all of this, like so far. You can teach an old dog some new tricks.
Yeah.
But it was never with shame or should.
Right. And to be clear, like it wasn't just that we were friends with them through you. We have been in the same small group for 16 years.
That is not a lie.
We have attempted many a Bible study.
Yes.
I don't think we ever
Really got through one.
completed one, much to Larry's chagrin. But no, we've been in it. We've had these hard conversations so many times, and a lot of times did not agree. But as you said, never was there condemnation.
Yeah.
It was always, we can disagree about this. We can keep talking about this. But you're not wrong.
Right. Nor did it ever mean this is going to harm our relationship.
Not ever.
Ever. And my dad and my mom, for sure. My mom's always been way more lefty loose than my dad. But my dad's, and I can just say this as a hardcore fact, my dad has always been motivated by love and goodness. He just has. He's a good man. Like, he's good and he cares about people. And he cares about people more than he cares about doctrines or sort of rules inside a religious system. Let's be, my dad doesn't like those. He's always been rogue. He has always been a rebel against like man-made rules and regulations. Oh my gosh, that horse bucks at those anyway. So my dad has always been able to say the person matters more than the policy.
And I think that's reflective in his whole career, because
sure.
he could have been behind the pulpit the whole time.
Yeah.
He went to school for it. He is an incredible storyteller.
Yeah. He's a great teacher.
He could have risen to the top in that genre of it, but he chose athletics.
Yeah.
He chose building community within all of your congregations. Like, the relationships he had with the kids, with the families, was so much more important.
You're right. And that's how he is in his real life too. He's like that with us. He's like that with his friends and all of his kids, really, because we're all over the place spiritually, the four of us. So anyway, I really love that question, and I have a lot of compassion for it, because I understand that in a lot of ways my dad's exceptional, and that has not been everybody else's experience, that differences in faith for a lot of people has been something of a deal breaker inside their family. I have friends like this, close friends. And I am really sorry if that is your story. And I wish that was different. And And I hope that maybe for anybody listening who's like, yeah, that broke our family in half and we haven't repaired, is that maybe time may soften some of those really, really hard edges, and that I do believe love gets the final say. And so, in whatever way that is healthy with appropriate boundaries, that is safe for you and your family, to continue to center love inside your family, that just won't, I don't believe it'll return void. So I really appreciate the question, Becky. All right, let's move on. We have been having tons of conversations about midlife, right? We're sort of cheeky and calling it midlife renaissance. This kind of big idea that midlife is not the end of something, but it really and truly is the beginning of this next phase. And so we got a couple of voice messages to share with you about that, starting with another Becky.
Hi, Jen and Amy. My name is Becky, and I am originally from the Panhandle of Texas. I decided to get a divorce after 41 years of marriage at the age of 62. I was raised in evangelical
Wow.
Christianity, so making this
Yeah.
choice was anything but easy. My divorce was final in 2018. I got a big girl job shortly thereafter, believing with all my heart that no one would want to hire me because of my age. It was terrifying. Turns out, though, my new boss wanted every bit of me. She considered my age an asset. I worked there for a little over a year and learned and experienced so much. I felt liberated and seen. During that year, I also did a few other things. I managed my own money successfully. I bought a house. I remodeled that house. I got my associate's degree. I met a friend of my kids who was interested in starting a business in Colorado. Because of my background in hospice, he wanted to pick my brain about his idea. And so we chatted on and off for about a year. And in late 2019, he asked me if I would move to Colorado and help him open an end of life care home. So I sold my house and moved to Colorado. My business
Wow.
partner turned into one of my very dearest friends. My relationship with him has and continues to provide so much healing from the toxic patriarchal system I was immersed in before. A couple of years later, I changed careers, and at 69 years old, I'm starting a new business again. Turns out I'm super smart, motivated, and capable, successful even. I've learned to listen to and trust my body and my choices. I have three grown children with families of their own, including my 11 grandchildren ranging from the age of 23 to 1. There's so much more between the lines of this story, but the bottom line is that I'm a badass. Who knew? Jen, your work has been life-giving for me in so many ways. And Amy, what a wonderful addition you've been to the podcast. Thanks and love to you both.
Well, how much do we love her?
I know.
Becky. I have goosebumps. What a great, I mean, I'm obviously nodding over here like a bobblehead. I'm like, same, same, same. I'm just, you will not convince me that this is not the potential story of every woman.
I know.
I don't mean every woman is going to get divorced and have to rebuild her life in the way that Becky and I have. I mean that every woman is a badass. I believe it. I'm not joking. It does not matter like what you have lost or how far along in your story you already are, or what you've never even done. I mean, I will remind you, I did not know what my bank account was.
Right.
I did not know how much money I made. I had no idea what our bills were. I didn't know how we paid our taxes. That was 5 years ago. Like, women are so capable. I'm telling you, even in this patriarchal world that is always centered and favored and preferred men, that hand men power they do not deserve, and that they do not steward well, I would still choose to be a woman every single day and twice on Sunday.
Same. And what I loved about her story was that she sat down and wrote it out. And I think so often we are encouraged to change our self-talk and remind ourselves with, powerful, quippy little sayings about, remind yourself, I'm a badass. Every day you can do it. But I think often we forget our successes. We move on to the next thing. We are constantly multitasking. We're focused on
True.
what to conquer next, what to survive next.
It's so true.
And we forget all the incredible stuff we've done.
God, if we even just wrote it down every week, I don't even mean the huge monumental movements in our story. If you wrote down everything that you did, managed, finished, handled, addressed last week, you'd be like, well, shit.
I know. It reminds me of Kendra, the lazy genius. When we talked to her,
Adachi?
I said something about sometimes I just have to make a to-do list of everything that I can think of that I already did, just so I can cross it off immediately,
Totally.
just for a tiny boost, just to hack my brain into believing that I can do the next 5 things.
So good.
And this is the same thing, but on a grander level. Tell your story again to yourself, to remind yourself of what you've done, what you're capable of, and you can use all of that as momentum for whatever's next.
Oh my God, totally. And one thing I really liked about what Becky just said too was, what did she say? She was 62 when she got divorced? 62. So she was, to go back to something I said earlier, telling herself a story. I'm too old. I'm too old to start a new career. Nobody will want me. Nobody will value me. She hooked into a narrative that just wasn't true at all. And so turns out, and you will not tell me otherwise, I think we're at our best in the second half of life. We know the most. We've experienced the most. We're smarter. We're better. We're wiser. That is the true story. And so what was true in her life is that not only did she get a whole awesome new job, she was esteemed for it, valued for it, and then selected to start something new with a younger partner. That's the real story. And so I think it also bears mentioning, play your reel and see which old stories are you believing that may not even be true in your life. I mean, I remember thinking, what am I going to do? Date a man? A whole man that I don't even know? No, thank you. I don't know how to do it. It's weird out there. Men are weird. I hooked into a story about that too. There's no good men left. The ones that are left are ruined, or they're compromised beyond repair. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm too damaged. Nobody would want to date me. I have 5 kids. Who would opt in for that? I just told myself a story that turned out to be categorically untrue.
Right.
So,
and some of us fell into that story with you,
Sure.
agreed with you at times about the apps, But it sounds like what she did was she found someone who gave her a different narrative.
Yes.
Who said, no, I value all of your experience.
That's right.
It is worth it to hire you. And then she found more people who affirmed the opposite story.
Absolutely. I think it works that way. I think these have cascading effects in our life, and we get to choose. If nothing else, put your chips on you. If nothing else, if you go, well, these people are like that, or this environment is this way, or, okay, you're still you. You're still smart. You still have gumption. You still have moxie. You still have possibility. So if that is the only story you can tell yourself, it's a good one. So anyway, yay, Becky.
And if I did the math right, it sounds like she's on her 3rd job, career at 69.
Love it. Love
Listen.
it. That stuff is so encouraging.
Well done.
Good job, Becky.
Okay. And lastly, we have Sarah, who is going to remind us again, because we need to hear it every day, that life actually does get better in this stage.
Okay, let's hear it.
Hey Jen, this is Sarah from Houston, Texas. I'm 40 years old, so at the beginning of midlife, which is so exciting. And when I was 36, I experienced a pretty traumatic life event in which, my partner and I split in the middle of moving, so I didn't have any, where to land, and in process also lost my business, had to move in with my mother for a year, so that was a humbling experience. And I can say at 40, I'm better than I've ever been. I have a bustling career I never imagined I could have. I have a wonderful supportive friend group, a beautiful home. I didn't think it was possible to reboot your entire life going into the midlife, but it is. So anybody listening to this, hold on. There's light at the end of the tunnel and it gets better.
Love these women. I love these women. I believe you. Like, I believe you so much, Sarah, and I have experienced something so similar. And I think if that is the message that our listeners take away today, that no matter what you lose, at whatever age, your life is not over. Your life, you are a powerful creator in your own life, period. Even if you're like, well, Sarah had this great community. She had a mom to depend on, or Jen had friends who loved her, like all the way like back to the surface. And I don't have any of those people. I don't have any of that. I don't have that community, or I don't have some of those tools or resources. You have yourself. You have yourself, and you are smart and gritty and capable. And you'll not tell me otherwise.
Also, we hear so often sort of this same narrative of betrayal, a divorce, starting over from scratch, and what people can accomplish out of that. But then I take a step back and have to remember, like, I have not experienced that at all. I have incredible stability. With my nuclear family, with our parents, with our neighbors. You don't have to have this split in the middle of this trauma in the middle of your life to then rise from it.
That is a great point.
Yes, we all have things that happen, devastating losses. But even if it doesn't look like this, betrayal, divorce, Phoenix rising, I still have all of that in me too. I know a lot of times it takes a trauma to activate it.
But it doesn't have to.
But it doesn't have to. Yeah. I'm just as capable.
That's great.
As someone who has been through what you have.
That is a great point. I wish it didn't always take trauma.
I know.
To sometimes bring those out from the storage unit, right, to the top of the pile. But it is really true. That's making me think of is, probably 3 years ago, maybe on the show, for the second time, I had Frances Mays. She is the author of Under the Tuscan Sun.
Oh yeah.
And so, which was largely autobiographical. And when she was on the second time, we were talking about her most recent book, which was a memoir about home. Like what were the homes and the places that built us? Not just in childhood, but the ones that we chose later, some that were temporary, some that whatever they were. Like, what role does home play in our stories? And she was telling this, I asked her, I don't even know why I asked this question, but I was like, was there ever like a temporary home that meant something to you? Like maybe not the one that you lived in for 16 years as a kid, but like one that was short but mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me that for essentially 1 week, I'm getting to your point. If it seems like I'm rambling right now, I'm about to connect to what you just said. For 1 week, she lived in France and she went to a cooking school. Julia Child's partner, Simone.
Yes.
Yes. Shoot. Beck. Simone Beck. Julia partners, like Julia Child's longtime partner. Anyway, doesn't matter. She went to this cooking school. This was in the middle. She wasn't a writer yet. She was raising a kid and she was a wife. And she was like, my daughter and my husband took up all the oxygen in the room, essentially, with their hobbies, with their habits, with their preferences. And I was just keeping the wheels on. And she's like, I did this radical thing by going to this cooking school in France. And she said, one day I walked out. God, I loved this story so much that I put it in my new book. She's like, one day I walked out and she's like, it was the time of year when the French countryside was harvesting all the roses for perfume. And she's like, so I'm walking down the street. I've been cooking with these delightful women all day. We're making beautiful food. Like we're in this community of creatives. We're having vibrant conversations. I'm walking down this beautiful village street. I smell the roses being harvested for perfume. And she said, just like that, she goes, a thought like came into my brain, which was, people can choose to live like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just dropped into her brain. People can choose to live like this. Is a choice. This is a choice. And she's like, that mattered to me. She goes, I went back home. It didn't happen overnight, but I could not forget that. And she's like, I went back to school. I started teaching writing. I wrote a book. And then lo and behold, she decides to choose her own life. And she buys a villa in Tuscany and uproots everything. And she goes, I just decided to choose the life I wanted. And I was like, shit. Like that, it impacted me so much. I have now told this story 100 times because I just could not believe the simplicity of it, which is you don't have to have a split. Your life doesn't have to unravel at all the edges for you to choose the life you want. Mm-hmm. You can do it whenever you want to.
Yeah.
You can look around and go, I am craving something different in my life. I want more meaning. I want more connection. I want out of the rat race, whatever your thing is. I mean, I want a voiceover, whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
You can just choose it. I mean, I know that is steeped with some privilege. So I want to acknowledge, there is a degree of privilege you simply have the agency to make some of these kinds of monumental choices. But some of them are small.
Some of them are small.
Some of them are small.
You know, I have two neighbors who have spent time in Spain. And one of them just started this habit a few years ago where at 5 o'clock, they both work from home. They both have big jobs, big jobs, but good boundaries. Mm-hmm. Sometimes she starts working at 4 a.m. in order to do this, but they stop at 5. Okay. They pour a small glass of wine. Okay. And they go for a walk down my street with their dog together.
With their wine?
With their wine.
That's so cute.
Every day.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not like, we have to take the dog for a walk. Like, we have to get our steps in. No, it's this intentional
it's a pleasure
thing based on community and pleasure. Like they're walking and talking and enjoying their wine.
That's so cute.
Every day. And just watching them from inside my house.
Sure.
Because I don't go out in the front yard much. Yeah. Just reminds me, you can choose that.
That's good.
It's a small thing, and I think it makes a huge difference.
Can you imagine? Like they're going to be telling that story 30 years from now, every day with my friend. This is what we did. Like that's the stuff that they're going to forget what they did during their workday. We do. We get to make really small, medium, and enormous choices that affect our life and our families. And I love that empowerment. There's such a through line here to all these listeners and their stories of agency and capacity and possibility and dreams. And I just love it. This is why, again, Give me the women all the live long day. So we had other amazing voicemails. Thank you for everybody who leaves us messages. We listen to all of them, and it is really a joy to not just hear your stories, but hear your voices and imagine you where you are in all the what world. So thank you. If you have something to share with us, listeners, if you've got a thought or a bit of your story that connects with an episode or a guest or us or whatever, or you just want to tell somebody, because as mentioned many times, writing it down and saying out loud has a power. That is its own powerful move. Maybe you've decided to let go of something. Maybe you've decided to grab onto something. Whatever it is that you'd like to tell us, we'd like to hear it. And so if you go to jenhatmaker.com, underneath the podcast tab, you'll see a send voicemail button. That's it. Hit it. And through the miracle of technology, it will record your message and come straight to us. And yours could be the next message or question. We welcome those as well that we feature on the podcast. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being such a great community of listeners. It really is a joy to serve you. And we think about you all the time. And thanks for letting us know what's meaningful to you and what episodes have mattered to you and who you're listening to. And we love all of our first time listeners too, like our first person. Never listened to your show, but here I am with a message. I'm like, welcome aboard. So remember to follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can just hit the add or follow or the plus sign, whatever it is in your platform, and it will put the For the Love podcast right into your library. So you don't have to go searching it up ever. And then, of course, thank you for reviewing and rating the show. That matters to all podcasts. And so we really appreciate those of you who take the time to do that. We are always listening to your comments and always listening to your input and feedback. So, okay, that was fun.
Thank y'all.
See you next week.